Coming up on today's show, the polar bear that turned a lovely shade of green, the devoted cat lover and his 50 feline friends. Germany opens a store for its latest fad, pet ants. A baby elephant attempts his first wobbly steps. And where have the tuna gone? A new research centre tries to find out. Visitors to the kangaroo and wallaby enclosure at Germany's Bad Sorrow Pheasant and Game Park were recently surprised to see a tiny, helpless baby roo, or Joey, lying on the ground. Baby Daisy had apparently fallen out of her mother's pouch and was unable to climb back inside. Hartmut Richter, owner of the private park, took the kangaroo home and put her into a sheepskin-lined linen shopping bag. Daisy was born prematurely after a pregnancy of only 33 days and would have died if Hartmut hadn't found her when he had. The tiny baby kangaroo still weighs only 350 grams and is the size of a kitten. She's now being bottle-fed every 4 hours on the dot by her adoptive father. Raising orphan joeys is often difficult and time-consuming. At first, they're likely to be suffering from shock and stress as a result of separation from the mother kangaroo. Joeys don't show signs of being sick as plainly as dogs or cats, and when they do, it usually means they're very sick. Hartmut knows he has to look carefully for signs such as loss of appetite, weakness, coughing, and weight loss. Anything out of the ordinary. Joeys have to be trained to drink artificial milk formulas from artificial teats, and the first few days can be quite trying as they get used to it. To make matters more difficult, marsupial milk changes to provide the nourishment required for different stages of a joey's development. Hartmut will have to duplicate these changes as Daisy gets older. After several weeks inside its mother's pouch, a baby kangaroo becomes more active and gradually spends more and more time outside. Daisy's now old enough to spend several minutes a day exploring her natural environment. It's hard to believe that those spindly little legs and narrow tail will soon help her to hop up to 60 kilometers an hour and leap over obstacles 10 feet high. But for now, all she really wants is her warm, safe pouch. A rare green turtle caught in a fisherman's net in the Adriatic Sea has been saved from the soup tureen by a simple environmental protection scheme set up in Albania. When Christopher Columbus sailed through the Caribbean 500 years ago, his crew reportedly saw so many green turtles that they had to push them aside with poles to clear a passage for the ships. Today, nesting wild green turtles are all but gone from the world's tropical and subtropical oceans, so to spot one in these waters is a very rare find indeed. Green turtles take their name from the greenish colour of their fat and a slight green tinge on their shells. They can grow to over 1 metre in length and weigh up to 375 kilograms. Professor Idris Hakshu, head of the Natural Science Museum in Tirana, said the young green turtle was caught in the fisherman's nets alongside 30 endangered loggerhead turtles. The professor was even tempted to put it in formaldehyde for his museum, but changed his mind because he'd never seen this species in these waters before. In the end, the green turtle would be marked and returned to sea by the protection scheme that Professor Hakshu administers at Patok Beach. He's even convinced hard-up fishermen to alert him when they net turtles and pays €20 for each turtle they help to return to the sea. The creatures go back to the deep marked with blue tags from a Tunis-based centre for monitoring Mediterranean sea life. It's believed that the young green turtle was attracted to Albanian waters in search of food. Akshu said that while older green turtles dine on algae, the younger ones are carnivorous, and he thought that the green turtle that was caught with the loggerheads was probably looking for a feast of crabs. Many turtles, some weighing up to 100 kilograms, were currently feeding on crabs all along the Adriatic coast. This has increased in recent years because of changes to the world's ecosystem. Sea turtles appeared on planet Earth 110 million years ago, but in the last 50 years, human disturbances have brought these marine reptiles to the brink of extinction. More than 100,000 green turtles are still killed each year for meat, and in some parts of the world, such as Indonesia and Malaysia, eggs from nearly all green turtle nests are collected for food. In addition, the shells of sea turtles are still widely used for making tourist curios and jewellery. These magnificent marine creatures, who once swam with the dinosaurs, are now counting on us for their very survival. For more than 16 years, Artitaia Kamyorn has been collecting abandoned stray cats from the streets of Bangkok. Whenever Artitaia is out and spots a foraging feline, he carries it home, gives it a good feed, and provides it with shelter for as long as his new houseguest cares to lounge around. The 27-year-old cat lover has built several large cages in his home to feed and care for his 50 cats and 16 stray dogs, who basically have the run of the whole place. Artitaia admits that he spends between 30 and 40,000 baht on his precious cats every month. That's the equivalent of $750 to $1,000 a month for food, vaccines, and other bits and pieces to keep them purring along happily. The cats are kept on a basic diet of tuna and rice, a far cry from the filthy scraps they once had to fight over on Thailand's crowded city streets. Only recently, 2 domestic cats died in Thailand of the same deadly bird flu virus that's killed at least 22 people in Asia. Artitaia has expressed little concern that the deadly virus could affect his cats, preferring to believe that if anything bad was to happen, it would have already done so. According to Artitaia, his furry friends are so well cared for that the Thai government would have to scientifically prove that his pets were infected before he would ever consider handing them over. Besides killing humans and millions of wild and farm birds across Asia, the H5N1 strain also showed that it can jump to other species after a rare clouded leopard at a zoo near Bangkok was confirmed as dying of bird flu. Artitaia has noticed that his cats seldomly, if ever, venture into his garden or the surrounding area, much to the delight of his concerned neighbours. He puts this down to the fact that they've spent most of their lives as starving strays, and now that they can enjoy a pampered existence, they have no desire to see the outside world again. This strange behaviour has also helped to protect them from contracting the deadly bird flu virus. In the meantime, Artitaia's cats are busy making more cats for him to take care of. But he really doesn't mind. If you're looking for a gift for someone who has everything, there's a new store in Berlin that can probably help. They sell ants, colonies of ants. According to owner Martin Sebesta, ants are easy to look after, they don't take up much room, they're not dirty, and they don't make much noise. The perfect pets. 28-year-old Sebesta runs Ant Store, Europe's only ant shop. His customers used to be zoos and research centres, but the self-proclaimed ant fanatic quickly realised that more and more people were buying the little creatures for their own homes too. He now sells at least 2 full colonies a day for around $126 each. while his most expensive ants cost $1,764 per colony of up to 20 insects. These not-so-little creatures come from Southeast Asia, grow to around 2 inches long and have a sting on the end of their tails, much like a wasp's. Since it might be a little tough to try and stroke them, Sebesta suggests that new ant owners should let their pets roam around a houseplant with water at the base to prevent them from escaping. Children especially love them, says Sebesta, because they can observe a mini world where every member has a different job to do. Some collect food, others defend the queen. And before you think ant ownership is just a short-term proposition, an individual this size can easily live to the age of 30. A bear lies in a lush green meadow at a zoo in Turkey, dreaming of bees and honey. Or here in Switzerland, a bear wanders around in the forest, oblivious to onlookers. It's hard to believe that this is a zoo, but it is. And like all the best zoos, it allows the visitor to see the animal in its natural habitat, behaving just as it would in the wild, but unfortunately, not all captive bears are looked after so well. A recent investigation by the WSPA, the World Society for the Protection of Animals, found that bears in Japan lived a very different life. The investigation found that in Japan there are 8 bear parks which currently house more than 800 bears. The conditions in the parks even contravene the recommendations and standards of the Japanese government and the Japanese Association of Zoological Gardens and Aquariums. The investigation also discovered that the food given to bears was inadequate in a number of the parks, with several using leftovers from local schools or hotels. Previous investigations have shown that leftovers are often not checked before being given to the bears, and on a number of occasions contain material injurious to the animals. In 3 of Japan's larger parks, bears are forced to do bizarre circus acts such as handstands or riding a bicycle. These tricks are taught through a training process reportedly based on fear and punishment. In the mid-90s, the WSPA exposed the mistreatment of dancing bears in Greece and Turkey, eventually stopping the tradition in those countries. The organization is determined to repeat that successful outcome here in Japan. According to their report entitled Begging for Change, enclosures must provide sufficient space to allow the expression of a full range of species-typical behavior and movements. And while the polar bears at the Singapore Zoo are a good example of well-treated bears, living in a purpose-built enclosure, the poor things are still having some serious climate adjustment problems in this hot and humid country. The Arctic's favorite predators have started turning green because of algae growing in their translucent hair shafts. 26-year-old Sheba and her 13-year-old son Inuka, the only 2 polar bears at the zoo, started showing symptoms of the pigmentation a few weeks ago. Visitors at the zoo were pleasantly surprised and also curious about the strange state of the bears. Zoo officials said Sheba had received treatment for the fungus growth. 2 weeks ago, her coat was sprayed clean with a hydrogen peroxide solution. Now she's bleached white compared to the blemished and green Inuka, who will receive similar treatment soon. The bears seem hardly affected by their new colour as they continue to lounge around their air-conditioned enclosure, occasionally taking a dip in the water. Zoo staff now believe that Sheba and Inuka were infected by algae on a log that they'd both been playing with. According to Senior Assistant Curator Francis Lim, the logs which were provided as part of an enrichment program must have contained the algae. When the bears rubbed against the logs, the algae would have transferred onto their fur and flourished in the warm, humid climate. Despite the fact that polar bears look like they're clad in a thick coat of snow-white hair, they're not actually white. By reflecting sunlight onto their translucent hair shafts, they appear white. When they're not green, that is. Taking your first steps is never easy, especially when you're a 250-pound bouncing baby elephant. In the first few minutes after its birth, a baby elephant or calf learns to stand and walk. It's a necessary survival skill that allows the newborn to drink its mother's milk. This baby boy, born at the San Diego Zoo, is still a bit wobbly on his feet. He's here because his mother and 6 other elephants were rescued from Swaziland's National Park and flown to California just 6 months ago. The African herd was to be culled because of the overpopulation in the park, and the zoo stepped in to save the day. As you can see, elephants use their trunks to touch a new baby after it's born in order to comfort it when it cries or complains. Often the whole herd lends a hand, and this little jumbo needs all the help he can get. Residents of Rio de Janeiro demonstrated that Carnival is for everyone, with a pre-carnival celebration just for their pampered pooches. Poodles, bulldogs, Labradors, mini pinchers and Cocker Spaniels, amongst others, gathered on Copacabana Beach for the Dog Carnival, where they danced, paraded and showed off their fabulous costumes. While some may believe that Doggy Carnival says more about their owners than their 4-legged friends, we're assured that the dogs have just as much fun as well. Revelers presented their costume pets in the pre-carnival fashion parade for the 2nd straight year. There were ballerinas in tutus, brides, Mexican bandits, clowns, witches, nurses, and many more. In order to let their dogs join the street parade, owners had to show proof of updated vaccinations and bring their pets in costume. Some even handmade their mini outfits themselves for that chic Paris pooch look. Carnival organisers recommend that costumes be lightweight and that the dogs be kept away from the loudspeakers, which could hurt their ears. The carnival is really open to all pets, and while a few parrots and hamsters were spotted amongst the throng, it's really a day for designer dachshunds and chic chihuahuas to wow the Rio crowd. The bluefin tuna has been documented as an important part of the culture of the Mediterranean for 12,000 years and has been a renewable natural resource with sustainable fisheries for at least 2,600 years. This great fish has provided the economic base for many Mediterranean coastal communities for centuries. However, the bluefin is in trouble. Accumulated scientific evidence now shows that modern development activities and current fishing practices threaten the tuna population of the eastern Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean. With its decline, many important cultural elements are also at risk and could be lost unless precautionary measures are implemented. The Mediterranean Sea is the cradle of Western civilization, and we should be concerned about the integrity of something so basic to the economic and cultural fabric of the region as this great fishery. Ironically, even though this fish has such an important place in history and is still so highly valued, much of the fundamental biology and ecology of the bluefin still remains a mystery. And in an attempt to correct the mistakes of the past and to learn more about the bluefin and yellowfin tuna, Indonesia and Japan have set up Southeast Asia's largest tuna hatchery centre in the sleepy fishing village of Gondol on Bali's north coast. The Indonesia-Japan Tuna Propagation Project is part of a long-established government marine research centre called the Gondol Research Institute that's been very successful in farming grouper. They currently have around 60 yellowfin in their pools, weighing around 5 to 10 kilograms each. The pools themselves are 59 feet in diameter and 20 feet deep, with viewing windows that provide researchers with an excellent opportunity to study the tuna's natural behavior, both above water and below. Head of the institute, Adi Hanafi, said the centre is concentrating on the hatching process before rushing into dreams of tuna farming or even restocking the world's oceans. And it was a surprise in quadruplicate when farmer Cosmo Uzja discovered his cow was about to give birth to not one or even two, but 4 healthy calves. When, after 2 years, Uzja's cow was still barren, he consulted the local veterinarian for help. After 4 attempts at artificial insemination, the cow was eventually declared pregnant. The multiple birth took place in the village of Maikes, Albania, about 63 kilometers south of Tirana, an area that's amongst the most polluted in the country, which may have caused the genetic anomaly. Quadruplets occur naturally at the rate of 1 in 665,000 deliveries. Over 11 million monarch butterflies, known for their annual migration across the Americas, died in Mexico recently because of an unusual cold snap. The annual journey involves the massive migration of millions of monarch butterflies which leave the freezing Canadian tundra to settle for the winter in the balmy refuge of the mountains of central Mexico. Hundreds of millions of the orange and black-winged creatures travel some 3,000 miles to the states of Mexico and Michoacan, where they normally remain until they return to Canada 4 months later. In recent years, Mexico has cracked down on loggers who threaten the 250-kilometer-long reserves. But this year, it's the weather and not the logging that's decimated the butterfly numbers. In spite of constant scientific efforts, this spectacular migration remains a mystery to scientists. Aside from how such small, delicate creatures can travel such great distances, they also marvel at how butterfly populations can bounce back in a matter of seasons after so many millions die off. Surrounded by breathtaking mountain scenery, the frozen lake of San Moritz is the natural setting and venue of a spectacular sports event. The 30,000-strong crowd, among the most affluent in racing, are here for the 97th annual running of the White Turf Races. Thoroughbred horses from around the world thundered across a frozen lake in flat course sprints, trotting events, and the exclusive skijording races. Skijording, a Nordic word for being dragged behind an animal while on skis, is the perfect description of this crazy event. Basically, the skiers and trainers agree. The horses run the race on their own. The skiers hold on for dear life, while their fearless steeds thunder down the snow-covered frozen lake at speeds of up to 60 kilometers an hour. It takes 3 weeks to build and groom the 1,200-meter oval track. The thickness of the ice on the lake can vary from 20 to 55 centimeters, but the sure-footed horses don't seem to mind the unsteady surface. Human athletes would have to train for some time at this altitude to encourage the production of red blood cells, which increases our oxygen-carrying capacity. Horses, on the other hand, are designed to store a reserve of red cells in their spleen for release under intense effort, so no special training is required prior to this unusual race. Bye for now.